I buy you a diamond ring, my friend, if it makes you feel alright. I get you anything, my friend, if it makes you feel alright. I don't care too much for money, 'cause money can buy me love. Some of you may recognize those words. They're from a 1964 hit by the Beatles. And the meaning that Paul McCartney and John Lennon were trying to convey was pretty clear. Well, money may not be able to buy you love, but it is a talking point when you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody. At least it should be. This is Moneywise on NDTV Profit, and my name is Alex Matthew. And today, I'd like to talk about money and love. What are the green flags and the red flags that you should look out for? What are the topics that you need to discuss, and what are the decisions that you need to make together? We'll talk about all of that and more. Joining me on today's episode is Pooja Bhinde, Certified Financial Planner, and Mohit, Co-founder and Chief Executive Officer of Moneyfront. Thanks so much to the both of you for joining in.
Thank you.
What did you think of my singing skills?
Fabulous.
Mesmerized.
Thank you so much. So it was a leading question, and I'm glad that you gave me the right answer. But having said that, do you think, both of you, and we'll talk about your opinions on this, because there's no single right answer, I think, about these things, and I guess you do the best that you can. Do you think that enough conversations happen between couples about money in the courting phase as well as when people are married? I'll start with you.
See, I would say even if the conversations happen, during the courting phase, they might be just, the first level conversations, not a very, discussed, like, about the goals, the future, like, what are the aspirations, what are the career plans that you have. And regards to the saving, I think, I'm just talking from the women's side of it, that you need to observe a lot. I think observation also, brings you a lot of understanding about what that person is, or what are his habits, or what are his thought processes.
Okay, so why don't you elucidate? Why don't you go a little deeper into that one point? When you observe somebody that you meet, what are the things that you're looking at?
See, many things. First of all, you need to see that expense management. I'll always, before going to the investment part, I always see the expense management. Expense management meaning, is he all about brands? Is he just spending everything, like whatever he's able to, save apart from the investment? Is he just buying all brands, or is he going basic also? Because we don't know the future. So if it is just a brand-oriented person, then that's one of the red flag. Number two, when the two of us are going out, are we talking about splitting the, the bill? And also at the same time, when we are going in a group, that's also very important. When you go out in a group, certain groups, there are, wherein, they'll split, they'll Dutch. But certain groups, it's like if it's an old group, old college group, then it's like somebody might, say that today I'll take the bill. Some other time, somebody else will take the bill. So during that time, you need to see whether he's ever taking the charge of, paying the bill. So,
or is he skipping out?
Or is just skipping the whole thing. So these things, and at the same time, how is he treating people, with,
but that's not
with or without money?
Yeah, with or without money.
Yes.
So people that don't have money.
Yes, how is he treating them? Because, respect is all you need, see, money, nobody has got before birth. Everybody has earned it.
Some people do. But having said that, Mohit, I want to come to you on this one, right?
Yeah.
Because Pooja has listed a few things from her perspective. You've been successfully married for a long time. Talk to me about some of the red flags that you would see.
I've been married for 20 years now, Alex. I'll not use any adjectives for it.
But you're not saying it like an old man.
Yeah. Look, I think openly conversing about finances is one of the key rules of a very happy and successful marriage, right? You have to be extremely transparent, open, confident about what you're getting back home and how you're spending it and how you're saving it. All of this forms the overall ecosystem of your house, the harmony of your house, right? The way you would like to have your love dates, or the way you'd like to have your beautiful moments together, you should have your financial dates together. It could be a monthly date, it could be a quarterly date, right? And I think to each couple his own, but you need to fix one where you just sit on that Excel of your entire house.
That sounds very romantic.
No, it is indeed. Trust you me. But it just gives you so much harmonious flow through the year and just brings in so much of transparency, right? What is each one getting on the table, right? And how is that money getting spent, to what all degree, to what good measures, what is the frivolous part of it, what can be avoided, how much is going for the domestic setup of household helps, this, that.
Okay, so you've both had some very insightful things to say. You've spoken about the courtship phase. You've spoken about things that you observe when you meet somebody, maybe go out on a date. You've spoken about the tips for a successful and happy married life in terms of managing the finances together. But the question is, right from the start, when you meet somebody for the first time, either you're lucky and you meet the love of your life. It doesn't happen very often, I'm told.
Yeah.
I got lucky. But having said that, you may meet somebody that other people put with you, right? It's an arranged match.
Yes.
And so from that perspective, there's always this front that people have, Pooja. How do you get past that? And what are the conversations that you need to have? Can you be upfront about certain things? Should you be?
Yes. I think it's very important. It's a very right question for someone who is planning to, enter into a relationship, a committed relationship, or an institution of marriage. So as you rightly said, because, if it's an arranged kind of a setup, there's a lot of homework which is already done from the family side. Okay, homework meaning I would just say everyone, whatever community you pick up, everyone would just first see what's the financial background. Is the guy settled? Is the guy living alone, or is he living with the parents? The parents are retired, or even they have any sort of income.
Or dependent.
The family, does they have one more unmarried person in the family, like a sister or another brother? How are these people placed in terms of their career?
Okay.
Yes.
So all of this is done beforehand?
All of this is done beforehand. We say there's a lot of inquiry that people do. Obviously, there are two parts of inquiry to it. One is the character of that person, which from my personal experience, you will never come to know a character of a person just by the inquiry from the outside. You need to spend a lot of time with that person to understand the person. Things have changed, dynamics have changed. Initially, it was just two family meet and, the things were sorted. Now the entire onus is on the couple or the guy or the girl. And the family's bit is done by saying that, okay, we think everything looks fine. Now you take the call. Now when we go ahead and we meet the, the prospect, we see a different picture.
You look under the covers and it's not actually.
We get to know a different picture, and then there are a lot many layers. So what happens is these days, the marriages don't happen just with one or two instances. It takes a lot of time because people take a lot of time to decide because there's a lot of confusion.
So just to complete that point, and then Mohit, I'll come to you.
Yeah.
But you're saying that there is a phase of getting to know the person.
Yeah.
And you said that there is observation that takes place. You've already spoken about a few red flags and green flags. But real money conversations, knowing how much the person earns, whether they're making investments from your perspective, also what their portfolio looks like. Do you get into those conversations as well? The reason I'm asking is it's not a comfortable conversation to have.
Correct. As I, started with the conversation, the first part saying that the expense management is something, the first part that we, observe. And the second part is obviously the investments. Okay, so investment speaking, when you're talking about the, the career, there are two options. Either the person is having his own business or the person is, employed somewhere or is working in a corporate. So when you know someone who is working in a corporate, you know what position is he working, what kind of corporate is it. So there is a little bit of assumption on what the pay package is. Okay, the second part about investments. Now, obviously, these conversations, become a little boring as to, have you invested in mutual funds? Have you invested in gold? Have you, done this, done that, and all of that? But you kind of, get some kind of a conversation saying that the markets are, going so volatile. have you ever invested? Have you do you have a story?
Right.
Something like
So
that.
you don't need to make it
Yeah.
boring, make it interesting.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, which is what you meant as well.
Yeah.
Right, when you talked about the Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the idea of somebody's romantic date, but it could be.
A financial date, yeah.
It could be a financial date, and it's a good practice to have. Having said that, and you didn't speak much about the pre-phase. Let's talk about the pre-phase first, and then we'll go into the do's and don'ts.
Sure.
In your opinion, you didn't mention any green flags and red flags. Do you want to?
Look, I think from my perspective, it's always a very good practice to have a very direct conversation, right? Obviously, in your courtship period or whatever time you're spending prior to your marriage, you're spending all kinds of time, right? You're getting to know your families, which is also not like very romantic, but you will ask each other who all are there in your families, who are your close friends, what are they doing, blah, 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 right? You will ask about your hobbies and interests, right? And then you'll ask about your studies and your future ambitions and everything. And in the same breath, if you ask about the finances, right? What do you do? Basically, what are your thoughts about it? How much, like asking how much do you earn might not be the most appropriate of the questions, but what are your thoughts about savings and investments? Do you invest, right? I think that's a very fair question to ask. And to figure out what all is the other person involved in. Is he involved in cryptos? Is he involved in stocks? Is he involved in futures and options? Is he involved in mutual funds, SIPs, FDs? That also gives you a lot about the psyche of the person, right? You might just find someone who says, I just do cryptos and bitcoins, and you know what kind of person you're dealing with. Or you might find someone who says, no, my dad does it, and traditionally we've only held FDs, right? So these are two extreme spectrums. And then you might find that right person saying mutual fund sahi hai, right? So basically it is about just asking the direct question and gathering thoughts around investments and savings plus the future goals. I think that's more important. You all start with a low base, right? When you were just about getting married, when I was just about getting married, there was hardly that much to earn and that much to save. In a city like Mumbai, it's extremely difficult till you find your feet. But it's extremely important to know what your future goals and ambitions are. Where do you see yourself, right? Would you want to set up on your own someday? Would you continue to be in a corporate life? Would you want to travel abroad and settle abroad? Because those are all questions which will finally impact your financial life
And
going
children.
forward. And children. I was just about covering that, which is the most critical part, which has to be discussed prior to marriage as to what are your thoughts around children.
And that can change. It
Yes.
can
It
change.
can change.
Yes.
It can change, definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
You should be open, or at least the idea should be that, yes, you have a conversation. This is how the context is right now. This
Yes.
is
Yeah.
what my desire is. You should be very clear about whether or not it's a deal breaker, right?
Yeah.
These are things. But, and I'm glad that you said that, because it could well be a deal breaker.
Absolutely.
And it is not just a decision that is emotional. It is, in fact. And we've spoken about this
Children
on
and
the
pets.
show as well.
They are children and pets. Honestly, Alex, I think these are all modern day conversations, but needs to be openly held.
Yeah.
Because finally you are talking about a living being with you. Who will spend the whole life with you, and there are financial implications of this, right? And I think that as a couple, you need to be extremely clear whether you want to go for one child, whether you want to go for 2 children, whether you want to have no children or whatever, right? So that philosophy and that thought, and it can change. It
Yeah.
definitely does change over a period of time, I've realized. But you need to openly be discussing that and have clear vision of what the other person wants.
Okay. Pooja, so from your perspective, when you're talking about, and I'm sure that you interact with clients that are married, what is the kind of advice that you give them in terms of the do's and don'ts of managing money? Because I know there are a lot of different practices here. There are people that say, okay, one person from the couple spends on all of the expenses,
Yes.
and the other person saves everything.
Yeah.
I don't know how functional that is. I personally have a savings account. My wife has a savings account. We both put money in an investments account, a fixed percentage, and it gets deployed from there. Everything that gets left over gets spent on whatever we want.
Yes.
I think that's a simple answer, but I don't know what you think.
That's actually, the right way, I would say. If there are two people working, I am just quoting
Oh, yeah.
here.
That's an
working.
important
That's
point.
very important because, yeah, we'll talk about it the other way. But first, let's come back to this, that whether two people who are working, whatever, the paychecks are, they both have their individual accounts, but at the same time, if they manage a joint account wherein, the investments happen of whatever percentage they decide, and at the same time, whatever are the household expenses, like, you can also say the EMIs, the groceries, if you have child, and the children expenses, then the contingency fund, all of that can be also parked in there. And then whatever else you have in your individual accounts, you can use for your own personal expenses.
Without judgment.
Without judgment. You do whatever, because obviously the investment part is taken care and the expense part is also taken care. I think there's a lot of understanding and trust here if there is something like this happening. But as you rightly mentioned, that when I come across a lot of clients, and if there are no two people working, but only one person working, or maybe from a business family where there is volatile income, and a housewife, or someone who is working kind of a part-time just to kill time, maybe, So then the arrangement is sort of different, because obviously the male member might have that say that, okay, I'm doing the major part. So that, splitting of expenses or creating a joint account doesn't work there. So you don't have to talk that way. How you have to have the conversation is, the male member is providing for whatever 100% or 80% of the expenses. The female member is taking 100% care of the family.
And of her time.
And, looking for the household, for the children.
Yeah.
So here, you get them to equals.
Sure.
Yeah. And at the same time, even if two working people also come across together, we have to give them a scenario or a situation that the female member might take a break for a couple of years.
Sure.
When you have children.
Sure.
So the male member has to understand that the child is yours too.
Yeah.
So you can't be expecting the female member to, chip in money at that point of time.
Right.
Because she's taking a break, managing the child and, all of that.
Yeah.
So I think do's and don'ts will come as per the situation of what that particular couple is. But I would just would like to make a point here that, how we say in a relationship, you have to keep your ego aside.
Yeah.
You have to keep your I aside, and you have to think about the we.
Yeah.
Similarly, because money or finance is also one of the, important pillar of a relationship, you have to keep two eyes aside of whatever you're earning. But a we that, we are not here to compete. We are here to, progress together.
And
so how are we going to go together?
And talking about it, I've found helps, because if you don't talk about it, things tend to fester for a bit. And you can eventually have a conversation saying, hey, I'm spending too much on these things and you're not contributing enough. So you want to head that off. But when it comes to the actual brass tacks, right? Let me ask you this, Mohit. A lot of people say, because of the unfortunate situation that a lot of people find themselves in, where there is separation that takes place, there is always the advice that you should invest separately. You shouldn't pool your investments because it becomes messy later. Is that something that you also advocate?
Look, honestly, I think there is no harm in having joint investments as well as investments in single name, both running parallelly. You should have both, ideally, right? You have joint liabilities, you have joint goals, you have joint financial dreams, you have joint retirement plans, you have joint plans of buying a property, which is the most coveted goal for any couple together, right? So for that, you will need a joint pool of savings. So there is no harm you investing in a joint name. You keep, one is the first holder, other is the second holder, and keep your nominee as your children with a guardian or whatever, right? Having an individual investment plan is also essential and is completely required. You cannot do away with it, right? You cannot just rule out a scenario where something were to happen in life. You need to have an individual provision which will take care of your own ambitions. You, as an individual also, you will have your own dreams, your own ambitions, your own goals of traveling or whatever, right? Yeah. So you need to provision for that. And I think both can just parallelly work. Both can just parallelly happen together. So there is no need to have just either A scenario or B scenario. I think it's just a...
And this is something that I have suggested as well. I don't know if it's a workable situation, you have to tell me. But in the scenario that you were pointing out, where there's one earning member and there's usually the woman, and I don't want to make generalizations, this tends to happen more often than not. But in such a situation, what I've often noticed is that there is access that is provided to an account that is available as a joint account, and usually there will be permission that is sought. I'm going to be using this for my requirement. What I suggested is, why don't you pay a stipend to that individual, have them have an individual account, even if it is a token amount.
Yeah.
Because that money then becomes hers.
Correct.
Is that a workable situation?
I would say, see, being from again, the gender, if I'm keeping across, what happens is if one person is earning, okay, earning money gives you a lot of authority, okay, and the person who is taking money from the other person is coming to a secondary position because the person has to ask every time, okay. So being a person who is managing the family, the home, still coming at a situation wherein if I want to buy something, whether it is a mobile or a sari or anything, every time for little petty things I have to go and ask. If I get the liberty of every month a particular amount is given to me in whatever manner, and a credit card or a debit card is given, obviously understanding the pros and cons, the person has so much of independent feeling inside her or him, saying that, okay, I got this today, I got that today.
And this is mine.
Yeah, and this is mine. I got it. So I think money or these things, these things or these ideas, there are many things wherein, you can manage.
So a couple more things that we need to speak about, Mohit, from the perspective of parents. And this ultimately is a very core part of our society as Indians. We take care of our parents, and that is very important for us. But not everybody has the same outlook towards certain things being done. Nobody says, no, I don't want you to spend on your parents, but the amount that some people spend becomes a question mark. How do you think that this sometimes thorny issue can get dealt with?
Look, I think complete financial fidelity is of utmost importance out here, which means that I share with my spouse what I want to spend on my parents, and she shares with me what she wants to spend on her parents. It could be for their medical requirements, it could be for their daily livelihood, it could be for their travel, it could be for anything, right? And the unfortunate part was that our parents, basically in our generation, we find a lot of parents not having properly provisioned for their retirement. So the requirements are pretty heavy. Not having proper medical insurance, the requirements can be pretty heavy on the medical side also. Right? So as long as you have that confident pact that we take care of our parents to the fullest extent, we set a right example in front of our children also. And if required, even I contribute towards your parents or you contribute towards my parents, as long as there is complete financial fidelity going around in the house on these aspects, I think you'll always see things are very smooth. The moment you try and hide something, that, okay, let me just try and give away this money to my ex-friend, to my parents, to this, to that, without telling the spouse or telling the partner. I think those are things which, when comes to the fore, can create a long-term
Quick
issue.
answer to this question. When it comes to spending, for young couples, advice here, Mohit, would you say that setting up a fund, even if you don't necessarily need it 20 years from now, it's a good idea for you to set that up for your parents?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Look, setting a medical fund, whether be for your parents, for yourself, or for anyone else in the family, is always a great idea, right? And it could be used for multiple reasons, but I call it medical fund because at that age, that is the biggest drainer of your resources, and that's the biggest requirement also.
Or help. If you're unable to stay
Domestic
with them,
help.
then you're talking about help, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And many times you find that people stay for their work reasons in metros, and families are based in smaller towns and cities, and frequent travel, whatever, setting up a domestic structure for them, medical requirements, having a corpus and provisioning for it every month will then always lighten your burden at the time when the actual need arises, right? So you need to just provision for a few of these things, and that's why the whole art of financial planning and knowing where the finances are flowing is extremely important.
Yeah, and it goes without saying that your partner should know exactly what you're investing in, especially if you're investing together, right? Which is why the financial date comes through.
Absolutely.
We're talking, of course, on Valentine's Day, but it is an important conversation to have. Thank you so much to the both of you for joining in. Of course, there's so much more that you can talk about, and I think we'll have to keep 3 episodes aside. Maybe we'll line that up down the road. Thank you so much for joining in. It's been an absolute pleasure bringing you this conversation. Thanks so much for tuning in. Do stay tuned. Lots more coming up on NDTV Profit.